Hello. Hello. Welcome to CLSP Politics. Up admitted, and I hope everyone enjoys this. So, I do have the chat going. You have to be a subscriber, but it's not a big deal. And what we can do is I can just start with some of the first questions I've got and just go from there. So, somebody asked realistically, what are our chances of flipping the Texas Senate seat this time around? Even as horrific as things have been in this past year, we still to come up short every time. It's incredibly hard to have a positive outlook lately. Well, that's definitely spoken as a Texas Democrat, but we are indestructible. We haven't had any luck statewide in my lifetime, really. I mean, I met Ann Richards when I was a little kid at a grocery store in Dallas. And that was the last statewide Democrat I ever met that was elected. So how realistic? Okay. There's a couple of things that you should probably know. And I'm going to kind of keep track of which shows I'm going to reference so I can add them to this when the recording comes out. So you guys click on the links. There are, oh, yay. I'm a big fan of Beto as well. Anyway, I met Beto back in 2012 when he ran for Congress. Known Beto for a hot minute. So anyway, and I'll try not to be distracted. I'll let my ADHD not take over the broadcast by constantly answering in the middle of sentences the posts. So what it boils down to is resources and logistics. So if you watched my primary series, I do a whole show just on, and I think I broke it into two parts because it's kind of long, just the primary calendar. So whereas in Texas, we have like 200 plus days between our primary and the general. And like Massachusetts has like 70 days. And that's the breadth of difference that we have state by state. And I operate in a lot of different states, and I've worked in about a dozen states at this point. And listen, all the laws are different. Everyone does their own thing. It's crazy. Like in Wisconsin, you can register to vote on election day, which means when you're doing a field program and you're knocking on doors, every single person you walk by could be potentially a voter. So it makes we have this program called an add-on program that we operate outside the bounds of the voter registration data for that very purpose. So, I mean, and Wisconsin's a really interesting state to operate in. I've have been lucky enough to operate in it now a few times. Love it. In fact, I was in Green Bay, and I think there's some people, Julie M64 is from Green Bay. I probably live down the street from where you guys are. I was maybe 2 blocks from the stadium. Lambeau, did the tour, loved it. Yeah, I mean, I'd live in Green Bay. Green Bay is awesome. Oh, there's Nancy. She may or may not be my mom. So when we're talking about Texas, you have to understand our primary. So no one even starts until about 3 days ago. So our primary season is really 45 days long. Which, when you talk about the logistics and size of this state, there's really no way for there to be an informed electorate for a primary in this state, unless you start, I don't know, probably the latest August of that odd year that before, so August 2025. Because you need to have thousands and thousands of conversations to even understand really what the voter universe is interested in, what their top issues are. And so there's a cost to that. To operate a field program or campaign of any kind for 7 or 8 months, prior to a primary. That's why incumbents in Texas are really difficult to beat, because they're already doing that. A lot of people sit with their families on Christmas and decide whether or not they're going to run. Well, now you've got 60 days to run your race. And if you're a first-time candidate, that's honestly not a lot of time. So that's why people hire people like me. And we'll go in and, most of what I do in campaigns, it feels like, is kind of give a lot of bad news all at once. But I'm the data guy, so a lot of people hire me to audit campaigns. and you can imagine nobody likes an auditor. So that's another bit of a wall I run into with clients, is that you literally hired me to give you bad news. And then I give them bad news because there's always bad news. And that's my job to find it. And it's a good thing, right? It's like when you hire a plumber or an electrician, you want to find the part of your house that's not behaving well, because otherwise it catches on fire or get covered in poop. So that's basically my job. I'm the political plumber / electrician. And I try and solve your problems before they're real problems. Sometimes candidates don't really dig here in that kind of news. So getting back to Texas. Typically, where campaigns operate is in what we call the 5/8. It's the 5 counties. They sometimes push it to 8. And that's the general. I think there's a very sound argument to be made that it's probably more like a 19 county campaign. But to understand the money behind that, you probably have to do a few passes of the electorate you're going after. And because so many people vote in Texas, it's not actually, by percentage, we're probably one of the worst voting states in the country, right? But there's just so many of us. Out of the 24 million registered voters in Texas, about 12 million will vote on a presidential cycle. Non-presidential cycle, 8, somewhere in there. And so we're not great at voting, but it means that there's a whole lot of people out there that, probably just need some information. Email is a black hole. Phones are dead because of things like this. Cell phones destroy phones. Like in 2006, I was running call programs, and in a 6-month period, it dropped. We were ecstatic if we got 15% response rate. In a 6-month period, it dropped 11%. We were at 4%. By 2008, if you got 4%, you were killing it. It's probably closer to 2% response rate. And when Obama's team came into Dallas and they ran their phones, it's like, oh, we're not going to do field. Dallas is too big. Obama Dallas, which is where I worked quite a while, we'd already been knocking on doors. We were over 100,000 doors by the time the Obama team got here in February of 2008. We'd been working since March of 2007. So we'd been doing stuff. And we told them, I was like, listen, phones are not going to work for you. If you get 2-3%, high five, you're doing great. That's not going to be enough. And they're like, oh no, well, we know we can get 6%. We're like, 6%? What's weird about Dallas is it's a 60% renter, 40% owner. We have a lot of moving population in this county. So ain't no way nobody's getting 6%. I ain't seen 6% in years at that point. So they came back, they're like, we got 0.5%. Like, yep. Then your lists are not great, but also that's not surprising. And then we began the largest field program in Dallas County history, because knocking doors is the only thing that works. Problem is, it's it's not inexpensive. Knocking on doors is expensive. To give you an idea, if you do everything right, and I mean everything, and you're killing it, and your people are hitting the doors. So, to give you just some of the quick math of a field program, you get a shift is about 6 hours. That's about how much you can really expect a canvasser to be out, right? You need 5 hours of door knocking in that 6, because transportation, move around, get your material, all the stuff that comes along with that. So you lose an hour right there. So really you have 300 minutes of canvassing. So when I do an audit for a field program, I'm down to the minute. Like I know that there are 2.78 minutes per door. And that's what you actually want. That's a good amount. And so we drill down to that level because you have to, because it's expensive. And doing everything right, fighting really hard, $3.50 a door is what you're going to spend. But, I'll tell you, when you look at mail, you get to drop 10 pieces of mail. Each one of those is about 50 to 75 cents. So that's $7.50 right there. And you have and you only get one vote for every $135 you spend on mail. Whereas canvassing, it's about every $20. So the ROI is 5 times mail. But mail's a lot easier. Campaigns feel like they're doing a lot more with mail. Like they're like, oh, we reached out to 150,000 doors. I'm like, you filled 150,000 recycling bins. Congratulations. Postage is insanely expensive. I can't even tell you. And then there's the mail house costs, the printing. I always tell Canada, you're not spending money until you put ink on paper. You're definitely not spending money until you put postage on that ink and paper. So field programs is really, really, really what you want to do. And that's the problem with Texas. It's 19 counties. It's a $4 million field program. Get you 1 million doors, approximately. That's 96,000 conversations. You guys hear me complain about the sample size of polling all the time, like the ones that just went out. I did a show on it today. 500. I just told you we got millions of people that are going to vote in that primary. 500 is your sample size. You're going to tell me you know what Texas is going to do with talking to 500 people? They said they were off by their margin of error was 4.8%. I was like, this is more than that, but okay. He's like, that's not really a thing. Okay, let me see. We've got a person here that wants to help. Okay. There's actually some really cool stuff that field programs need to be able to do, right? In Texas, this would be still on our Texas tangent. One of the things that we did with Obama was that we had a lot of people that really, you're right, knocking on doors, you need good knees. It's rough. But there were certain levels of logistics that needed to be done. And quite honestly, if I had a person who was a canvasser, I'd want them out there knocking on doors. But we had certain individuals of a certain age that didn't have so many good knees, and they were better at organizing stuff, getting phone calls out to canvassers and organizing precincts, helping at that level. There were things that we put together called precinct kits. Now, a precinct kit is a file box like the ones you get at Office Depot, the white ones that got the little handles, got the cute little lid. In that box was all the door hangers you needed for your precinct, all the kind of the training material, more or less, and some van numbers so that for phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and all that stuff was all pre-cut and already in the CRM, the van database management system. So that way, phase 1, this is the number they give everyone, and everyone goes knocks on the doors. And when they're all done with that, that's phase 1. That's round 1. Okay. Phase 2 is already programmed in, and it'll omit anyone that was not home or what have you. And then they run that one. That'd be their second round. And then phase 3 is usually GOTV, get out and vote. Well, somebody's got to assemble those boxes. And that's what really needs to happen here in Texas is we're too big to be moving a bunch of 300 people around. It's too expensive. You need to move 300 people around. You need, what is that? About 50 vans at $300 a day. No one wants to spend that kind of money. But if we keep the people in their precinct, Texas, especially statewide races, doesn't matter where the vote comes from. The vote's just got to come from somewhere, right? So keep people in their. That's what we did in Obama Dallas. There were these sweet little old ladies who walked in central North Dallas for us, and we gave them all the stuff they needed for their precinct. And they said, we go out for our constitutionals every night. And we're like, all right. They weren't breaking any ground speed records, but they were consistent. They went out 3 nights a week, every week, and just in the evenings for a couple hours, 60 minutes, maybe 100 minutes of true canvassing done. But if you go out 3 times a week, every week for months, you will clear turf. People think you need these giant armies of canvassers. That's absolutely not true. But you need people to help organize the materials at the front end. That's where I would put your effort. Talk to your precinctor, find out if they need any help running events, because events can be, folding flyers and getting all the materials ready for on the sign-in desk, putting the sign-in sheets together, getting the name tags ready. There's a million little weird things people don't even know that requires to really run a good precinct to get the vote out. So I hope that answers some of your question there. So getting back to Texas. Hope. Yes, there is hope. These are my problems right now with the candidates that are currently running for Senate. Now, I like them both. I'm ecstatic. We have 2 really great candidates running. God, I mean, for real. We've had a lot of years where it was like, we only had 1. And primary is good, believe it or not. It helps campaigns learn how to organize quickly. Like I said, we don't got a long primary. People don't really start doing anything until January. And then that means you've got 60 days. That's it. It's the shortest primary in the country is Texas primary. Now, we share that date with a couple other places, but you get my mind. We're the biggest state with the shortest primary, put it that way. So my biggest problem is, and I've got problems with both campaigns. I'll start in no particular order with Tellerico because I've watched him make a couple mistakes I've seen in the past. I'm anti, and I did a whole 2-3 shows on PACs last week. I'm not pro PAC. I'm pro like the DSCC, DCCC, those kind of PACs. I'm not pro super PAC. All the hidden money, the nonprofits that do all the bundling and funneling of money, and like if you look at John Cornyn's race right now, you're like, oh, he's got $13 million. He's got like $83 million working in his race right now, but you just can't see 60, 70 of it. That's the problem. There's all this dark money out there. And the only reason I know that money's out there for him is because those PACs have publicly said, this is what we're doing, and this is who we're doing it for. And then you kind of have to reverse engineer and figure out how much money they got. They got $40 million and out there operating for John Cornyn right now. $40 million right now. Because they're running against Paxton, who's got another PAC that's got $20 million running. But what I am anti is a candidate blowing off that money when they're a Democrat running in Texas. It's like trying to run a race with both your legs tied behind your back. We have 4 or 5 of the top 10 most expensive media markets in the country, right? We're the largest red state in the country. We have more counties than any other red state. To run in Florida, you need 7, maybe 8 counties. We need 19. It's not even close. You know, we have more people moving into this state than any other red state. We've got a lot of issues that cost money. There's no way to organize your way around it. You literally cannot manifest destiny door hangers. That's ink and paper. They got to be printed. Printers got to be paid. If you need to knock on 4 million doors, you need 4 million door hangers. Make them good. 10 cents a piece. Because you want them nice. You want full color, both sides, QR code and all the stuff and and they have to be die cut and 10 cents. So you haven't even hit your first front porch and you're spending real money. So that's my problem with Tallarico being anti-PAC. Because he just says, I'm anti-PAC. Well, there's a lot of really good PACs out there. They're doing a lot of really hard work. So now you're just saying, never mind them? Yeah, hi, Kathy. It's just really hard for me to grab. So okay, let's say he wins the primary, which I'd be down for. I like his messaging. I think his grasp of using the religious language that Republicans have been for the last really 45 years have been using is good. My dad was a minister. I grew up in the church. I mean, yeah, I'm a Unitarian Universalist, so we're a crazy left-wing Christian, but I sang in the choir, you know. So I get that, and you need that kind of language and someone who can have that kind of messaging. Problem is, if you have no money, no one's going to hear it. So one of the things I like about him is something that'll never probably get heard outside of the top 5 counties in this state. Because he said no to big money, and he's going to try and do it with little donations, which in a perfect world, if that was what the Republicans had to run with, that'd be great. But right now we're running against a 20-year incumbent or a guy who, if Cornyn wins, if Paxton wins, a guy who's won multiple times statewide. So yeah, he's not an incumbent senator, but he's an incumbent statewide candidate. So we got to beat that. And that's hard. And cutting your legs out from under you financially like that, it's not a smart move. Then we've got Crockett, whom I also very much like. She's from Dallas. I'm from Dallas. I mean, this is where she was a congresswoman and state house rep. I actually know her state house and her congressional district very, very well, or how they were drawn, maybe 10 years ago. Because listen, we knocked on so many doors in her congressional district back in 07, 08. People were putting signs on their door literally saying, if you're from Obama, I promise I will vote for him. Please stop knocking on my door. And that was the signal when I knew that precinct was done. So I know her district very well. And I know her state house district very well that she was formerly in. And I understand the dynamics behind her running in both those. This is not that race. This is a very different race. And in those races, especially the state house, you can be Jasmine Crockett's firecracker. Absolutely right, Julie. That's one of the things I like about her too. I'm like, honestly, this is where I'm at, guys. For real. I want an AOC Crockett ticket or Crockett AOC ticket. That's where I'm at. So anyone, believe me, those are debates I would love to watch, and they probably get record viewer. I mean, almost Super Bowl level viewing, I bet. Anyway, so yeah, it would be a wild ticket. So Crockett's run those races, and you could almost run them yourself. I know congressional candidates right now that are they're the hub of their campaign. They're making a lot of decisions that are usually made by staff, but aren't necessarily you don't need to, because you're in your district. You've already been there. You're doing stuff, and you almost just really need someone to run the calendar, and probably someone to maybe sit on your the van database for you. And the rest of the stuff, once you have a graphic artist and you have your material done, your logo's done, and all your little white papers are done, you can almost run your own campaign. It's kind of what she did. Plus, she had like the endorsement of the previous incumbent congresswoman when she ran for Congress. So a lot of front end work was done for her there. Well, this time she's running statewide, and I've watched many candidates deal with that reality, and it's hard because there's a lot of control that you're used to. Tallarico's running the same thing because he was a state house rep. That's nice, but it's 1/14 the size of Dallas County was his previous district. Now he's running for the second most populous state in the country. It's a different kind of game, and all candidates have to make that shift. So those are some of the problems I'm seeing right now in the Senate race in Texas. And it's money and it's organizing. And I think Jasmine's doing well on the money side. Tallarico's doing okay. But when they say, "Oh, I've raised 13 million," I'm like, cool. You kind of have to do that twice that every month for the next 8 months. But cool story, bro. I mean, the money is crazy. Love you too, Linda. So that's part of it. So the other question I got early on, and feel free to chime in on any questions, actually does kind of apply to everybody. She was wondering if there are any insight I could give into how the Illinois state government budgets can handle the SNAP gap. A lot of states are running in. This is like the ACA problem. This is the defunding of SNAP and healthcare that's happening. It's more comfortable. That's happening here, and it's happening everywhere. And you think Illinois' got problems? Illinois has more people on SNAP than most states, so that's where their problems coming in. Kentucky, they're looking at losing like 38 hospitals in rural Kentucky because of the ACA and what they're doing. That bill that I would be amazed if Trump signs what's coming out of the Senate, because that's still what needs to happen. Congress voted for it. Yay. And then they can run on. Now the Republicans can run on that for Congress. Great. It's not going to do anything if Trump doesn't sign it when he gets to his table. And they definitely didn't have proof majority in the House. So that was really a hard press with the Democrats. And yeah. So getting back to Illinois specifically, yeah. So the biggest problem is this. You have a $700 million problem, right? In 2027. Right now, in 2026, they're looking at an $80 million problem. Because basically, the federal government sets a guideline of 6%, right? You can't have more than a 6% error on your SNAP benefits. And SNAP comes in various different forms, from housing, food, healthcare. There's a whole bunch of stuff, right? And the ACA is folded into that. Right now, Illinois, back in 2024, recorded 11% error rate. And those errors come all different shapes. It's not like there's 11% fraud, because that's what the Republicans will say. That's not what's happening here. It's not 11% of fraud. It's 11% of mistakes, because they have millions of people on those programs, and the CRM they're using is antiquated at best. So they're trying to get that going. But of course, hard to do that when you're having an $80 million hit, then a $700 million hit in 2027. So it's basically they're just cutting the legs out from under the government. And I have my first 15 shows on this channel 300 shows ago was just Project 2025. I read it, all 937 pages of it. Gave me nightmares. I used to be a policy analyst before people said, before I realized you make a lot more money counting votes than actually, trying to fix government policy wise. So no one's paid to think. They need to pay you to do. So what I do is I count votes and count, canvassing and logistics and analytics and all that stuff. And but in a prior life, I was a policy analyst, and I read that as a policy analyst would read it, and it gave me nightmares for real. It was crazy. So this is all Project 2025, which blew my mind about 2024. There was a lot that went wrong in 2024, and if you go back to my show when Biden pulled out of the race, there's a point there where I'm like, my biggest problem with this is that no campaigns ever won a race this size by starting halfway through. Because no one ever has. So we kind of gave away 2024 when the powers that be decided that Biden would run for that second term. It wasn't when Kamala took over. It wasn't even when he resigned. It was when he resigned, but he was going to have to, right? Everyone saw that debate. I have competed nationally, internationally in debate in high school and college. I have trained candidates for debate. That was cringe. The whole time I watched it, I was like, this is going to end poorly. And I know I wasn't alone. So everything we're seeing right now is Project 2025. They gave us the playbook. A good friend of mine, Glenn, almost got a copy of an advertised original bound copy, and he missed it by a day. It was at a National Rifle Association convention here in Dallas, and he saw it and he almost got it. And he went back the second day to go get a copy because, just so we could bind it in human flesh and score it with a satanic symbol of some kind and turn it into truly the evil magic book that it was. And but he missed the opportunity. I don't know. Wasn't part of his campaign or in a circle. The reason he ran, and I'll be honest, guys, I was not there. I'm only speaking from what I observed and whom I've spoken to. So it's all hearsay. And also just knowing, you understand, was in office forever, decades and decades and decades. So he had staff, people that were used to being in a position of power for a very long time. And those staff positions don't like to give up power. In fact, more than the elected official. Some elected officials who really should have resigned long before they did stayed in because they've got their dudes in their office and in their inner circles saying, "No, you're good. You can do that." And the reason they're saying that is because they're on the top of the pyramid. They're in the know. They are where the power is. And they don't want to let that go either. So you just can't blame Biden for this. Biden's listening to the people around him. I blame the people around him. I don't blame Biden. I like Joe. I met him a few times during the 2008 cycle. He was a great guy. Super friendly. Sat down with me and talked to me for 20 minutes. I'm nobody. I was like a baby political consultant. Sat down with me for 20 minutes. And I was like, sir, you got to go talk to these other people because they're the money. I'm literally the guy who made sure the everyone had the right name tags, But he spent that much time with me because it's just the kind of guy he is. Super nice guy. Um, and now he's got some serious health issues, and that sucks. And and he's just had to think about what he's been through, right? He's no chicken. He did decades in the legislative branch, did 8 solid years, not easy ones, in the executive branch. His son dies. He runs for office for the executive branch through COVID and wins. I mean, dude, people are freaking just human. That's how I look at it. You can't begrudge them. But there was one request. Somebody wanted to meet my special assistant here at CLSP Politics. So I'm hoping that he comes by. He might. We'll see. Sometimes when I shake this, he comes by. So we'll see about that. But oh, there he is. Hold on. Come here, you. This is Micho. He loves treats. I'm gonna this. This is Micho. He loves treats, and he's kind of a fat kitty, but keeps me company and helps when I'm doing all my research and stuff. And he's a real good cat, but he's like 15 years old too. So he, oh, I'm sorry, he's 11, and he's like, so that's like 60 years. Oh, Catherine says hi, Micho. So anyway, this is the guy who keeps me sane. People are like, how can you be reading this and looking this stuff up all the time? Geriatric darling, exactly. And I'm like, well, it's this little dude here. You really can't see his face because he's kind of stuffing it, but there he is. But he's a big kitty too. He's not a small cat, and but he's a good kitty, and he hangs out with me quite a bit. And watch it here. You want some more? There you go. Right. There we go. Yes, food. So yeah, I wanted to. He made an appearance, I think, on my Christmas show. A couple people asked about him. He's still hanging. You can't really see him a lot of times. He's just off camera most of the time, either at my feet or right over there. But I can assure you, he hangs out with me and sees a lot of these shows. So, but getting back to the 2024 cycle, things were rough. Are you doing all you do, Sean? Oh man. Oh yeah. No, people ask me, how do you do this for 30 years? It's I do it because I have kids, to be honest. I'd like there to be a country when they're my age. And the only way that's going to happen is if people who do this work know how to do this work. And I'll be honest, since social media kind of took over in 07, people got away from field. People stopped knocking on doors. And that's where I started in 98. I was banging in wood stakes for yard signs and knocking on doors and helping campaigns, do what they do. And I was a itty bitty. I came out of student government in college. And okay, Micho, your time in the sun is over. Are you just gonna sit here? That's cool too. Okay. Okay, I'll move that. There. See, he's right here. Anyway, so that's why I do what I do, and that's how I've been able to do it for 30 years. I mean, when you got your kids on the line, you kind of have to, step up. You don't really have a choice as a dad. So that's kind of why I do what I do. I got started in this because I wanted to make the world a better place. It's part of my religion, actually, Unitarian Universalism. we it's almost like the Boy Scout rule of camping. Try to leave the place better than we found it. That's also part of why I do what I do. That's why I've been doing it for 30 years. And it'll be 30 years by the next presidential cycle, because I started in 98. So 2028 will be my 30th year. So I guess 28 years, not too shabby. And technically, I started before that date, but that's when the first gig I got paid for. That's how I start. But of super volunteer and did all the college dem stuff that you do and all that jazz. So I did all that for I got paid to do this kind of work. But yes, repairing the world, making the world a better place. That's literally what we do. So where was I? Oh yeah. What happened? Micho, do you want some more? Okay. So 2024 was brutal, but they gave us the manual on exactly what they were going to do. Problem is nobody believed them. It reminds me of that part in Ghostbusters. Hey Ray, when somebody asks you, "Are you a god?" say yes. When somebody hands you the manual of how they're going to destroy your country, believe. Because it's legit what they decided they were going to do, and it's all this weird neo libertarian nonsense. I always tell people about when they're, oh, my friend's a libertarian. I'm like, yes, his argument failed when he drove on the road in the car that didn't kill them to start their argument. That's when their argument failed. Libertarianism is just total nonsense. It's a white privilege run amok, which, there's a huge libertarian strain here in Texas. We're on our own. We're doing our own thing. If Texas could not pull money out of the ground and hadn't been doing that since 70, we would be a third world country. Facts. Right now, because of the gerrymandering that's happened both at the state level and at the federal level, we're an apartheid state. The minority, which is white people in this state, hold the vast majority of the levers of power in this state. Like mid 90 percentile of all positions of power in this state are held by white people. They make up a super minority of this state now. So what? And then they gerrymandered again. It was bad before. And then they re-gerrymandered it, turned up the volume. I have a whole video on gerrymandering, which I found out my son's social studies teacher from 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, started using to teach gerrymandering in his class. That's cool. But yeah. So yeah, Texas is wild. But getting back to SNAP and the ACA, I did a show, oh my gosh, back in June, I think, looking at what the ACA what would be happening right now. And there's a lot of really good databases that I really didn't even know about until I started digging around, which is usually the case. There's a lot of good databases on where hospitals are financially. And they have them divided in urban, suburban, and rural. And you can go through these databases. It's very interesting. It's very tedious, but I like tedium. Tedium is usually where they hide the good stuff. And when I isolated all the rural hospitals, broke it down by states, looked at where they were on their margins. This is all based on 2024 data, right? Because I'm doing this in mid 25. Like, there are 16 hospitals in Texas that are going to close. And then there's a myriad of other hospitals in Texas. These are all rural, that are going to have major, major, major problems. Like, stop prenatal care, stop births, hospitalize, if a woman needs to have a baby, you can't come to our hospital anymore. We don't do that anymore. That kind of stuff, services. And so even like when I was looking at, oh my gosh, we're going to lose 16, Kentucky's going to lose 36 hospitals. This is terrible. I mean, they go from like a 1 hour drive to a hospital to a 3 hour drive to a hospital. Go ask your doctor what the difference is and what the life expectancy is for someone if you can get them to a hospital in under an hour if they're having a heart attack versus 3. It's called tissue damage. It's bad news. So there's all these health ramifications that'll just bleed out over the next really 12 months. And yeah, and it's literally, what's weird about this is for the first time, the boomers aren't using their voting power to save themselves, which is literally the one thing they've always done since 1981. So it's like, wow, truly the one time, I mean, they're all in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, 70s and 80s, I guess now. And because the X Gen is in their 60s, that's rough. It's just going to be this. I mean, they're the ones who are going to need more of this healthcare than others. So I guess they're moving into urban areas, suburban areas, because they're the only places that are going to have anything left. And because that's where all the county hospitals are. Like Dallas, like our county hospital here, it services Denton and Collin and Tarrant County. I mean, that's nuts. Because by 2050, those 4 counties are going to be 95% of everyone that lives in Northeast Texas. And our hospital here is the one that basically handles all of the uninsured or underinsured. It's insane. So, and we're Texas. We technically have money. We just don't spend it on anything. We just make sure the wealthy keep all their money because we're an oligarchical state. So Texas, we pull money out of the ground. We don't have an excuse. We have the same budget as Saudi Arabia. Go Google Saudi Arabia. See what kind of healthcare system they have. See what their roads look like, what their trains look like. That's what Texas should look like. And we don't. I mean, we got parts of Dallas that look like Katrina hit. There were no Katrina. So, I mean, there's parts of San Antonio that you're like, wow, what happened here? Nothing. But nothing for so long, this is what you get. I mean, I've canvassed all these neighborhoods. I know. So yeah, it's pretty nuts. So we're so ACA, Illinois got a $700 million problem next year. And they're trying to, through training and better software, solve that gap, that 11%, bring it down to something more manageable. But then I think a bunch of other states are doing the same thing. So, I mean, that's what they're doing. They're also filing lawsuits and trying to get that money put back in. Lord knows the Democrats in Congress have been trying. Shut down the government about it. A lot of good that did. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be, it's going to be rough. And I think the stuff they did with the ACA is probably the toughest. That was some of the harder research. I've had some research I've had to do that kind of made me not feel well, kind of gave me kind of that foreboding feeling. When I was looking at the ramifications of the ACA stuff that one big, beautiful piece of crap bill was going to do, that was the stuff that really gave me nightmares. It was not cool. And I could definitely see it coming back. But hope I answered. I think the original question was there hope with with what Illinois can do? Illinois is a strong state, but I'll tell you, the soybean, you're the largest producers of soybean in this country. I didn't know that till I looked up, because the other thing I was looking at, that terrible bill, was what they did with the tariffs and the farm subsidies removals, and they removed rural housing subsidies. No wonder these congressmen, these Republican congressmen, aren't having town halls in their states anymore, because they can't even go into rural parts of their state and talk about anything. That bill was just so terrible. Yep. You're right. Yep. That's all going to happen. what Julie just said there is, so there's a lot of really interesting ramifications to that. So for a dynamic economy, you have to have 20s and 30s and 40 somethings buying houses, having kids, buying cars, because they generate the energy, financial energy necessary, the economy bubbling right along. When you see 20s, 30 somethings stop buying cars, stop having kids, stop buying houses, that's when you see a decline in the economy. And yeah, we can't afford that. I know we can't afford it. Believe me, I know. I'm right there with you. Yeah. Well, let's look back at 07 because this has all happened before. Remember when they got so I'm if you haven't yet, uh you got it. There's a lot of movies that were made about the big collapse in 07. They're all worth saying. That the one with Brad Pitt in it, the name escapes me, the big something. God, it'll come to me. If one of you guys remember it, post it because it's great. Um, it was all about the housing boom. Yes, The Big Short. Thank you. Amazing movie. Should watch it. If you've never seen it, go watch it. Brad Pitt's in it. Amazing. I weirdly, another Brad Pitt movie that I've watched that literally is how I approach campaigns now. It's Moneyball. Because there's a lot of ego and nonsense in campaign work. A lot of, well, this is how I feel about this, this is how I feel about that. It's a lot of feelings, a lot of stomach, not a lot of facts, not a lot of figures. That's why when you come to my channel, I don't do a lot of the feelings stuff. I do a lot of the math stuff. Because quite honestly, there's about a billion other channels you can go to if you want to, go by what people's gut says. My gut tells me all sorts of things, and then I go find math. Moneyball. And Big Short. Moneyball's because in Moneyball they kind of take baseball, and they're like, and to kind of take it into the work I do. Moneyball's about, what are we paying for? They're like, we pay for players. No, we pay to get on base because you can't score if you don't get on base. So we pay for getting on base. So what they do is they use math to go through all the baseball players and figure out who gets on base because that's all you care about. And I think that year, that was the year that the A's had the longest winning streak. It was 21 games or something like that. Longest winning streak in baseball history ever. And they ran it on, don't look at the players, don't look at the names, don't look at anything. Don't look at what people say about them. Just look at the math behind them. And getting on base is the most important thing. In fact, that's all that matters. So they didn't win the World Series that year, but they spent it was ridiculous, like $158,000 a game in player salary, and won more games than the Yankees did, and they paid like $1.2 million. It was a ridiculous overperforming, or the return on investment, the ROI. That's why when I look at ROI with campaigns, social media is flashy, but you need buy-in to have social media. To have social media have a footprint, you have to have buy-in. Mail is a black hole. Email is different. It's not a way to communicate. It was 1,000 years ago, 20 years ago. It was how we communicated. Now it's the key that allows us to know where other people are communicating. It's in and of itself is not, it's just where it's called spam folder, right? It's where all those emails are going to go. And you're spending money on all that stuff, right? The video production is important because you have to have good social media out there because it's how you grab eyeballs, and that's still important. But the most important thing is person-to-person contact, because I can assure you, I am not AI, but you wouldn't know that. That's how bad it is out there. Well, you can't AI a person-to-person meeting on a front porch. You can't bot a person-to-person meeting on a front porch. Plus, unlike a phone call, when you talk to this voter, you identify the voter because you walk up, you know the age, and you know what you're looking for, and somebody answered the door. I'm like, Bob Johnson. He was like, yeah. You look at him and he's like, oh, checks out. He's 60 years old. Okay. I'm talking to Bob Johnson. I know for a fact he's a registered voter. I know for a fact he lives in the district because I'm on his front porch. Phones can't do that. Plus, phones get like a less than 1% response rate. Field programs get a 12% response rate. So, yeah, sabermetrics. That's right. So anyway, you get this. You want a high ROI. You want a higher return on investment. That's why you don't look at the names of those players. You just look at what gets on base. When I look at campaigns, I don't care how cool and flashy the app is. It's the least. How much money? $1 to a vote. That's all I care about. That's the math. And in a state like Texas, where it's insanely expensive to run, that piece of math right there is all that matters. That dollar to vote ratio is all that matters. And in a lot of cases, it matters more than the candidate. But that's, so those, I love The Big Short's amazing. You watch it. I remember driving on I-75 and there was no one on I-75 at 3 p.m. because gas was $4.50 a gallon in Dallas, which, and by the way, if you convert it into today's money, would be like a $10 or $12 a gallon of gas. Yeah. People remember 07. That came from Republican economics. That was the Bush administration. That was, go buy a house. We'll give everyone loans. And the banks are like, sure, we'll do that, but we're also going to balloon them up so we make our money. And then those very same Republicans used corporations to go in and buy up all those houses when everyone defaulted. I'm almost like sure that was the plan. So we've seen what's going to happen. We know what 2026 is going to look like. 27 is going to look pretty rough. 28 is going to be insane. And then when there's a Democratic president, 2028, again, we're going to have to clean up the mess. That's all the Democrats do, is clean up the Republican mess. Because people got memories like this. I always tell people, you want to live like a Republican? Better vote Democrat. 100%. So we're getting down to almost an hour. Does anyone have any other questions? I'm game. Those are the ones that I got. I think I jumped off about 17 tangents, but tried to cover them all best I could. Yeah. Kelly remembers a $4 gas. That was $4 and $07. Everyone's talking about inflation. Yeah. Yep. Families just abandoned them. Yeah. Oh no. The Big Short, when they're going through Florida and there's just house after house after house just empty, just piles of mail. They're like, done. Nothing I can do. Can't afford it. They just walked out. Yeah. I'm sure he did. I don't remember, but that sounds about right. Yeah, it's all was it 300? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and Trump wants to send everyone a $2,000 check, right? Yeah. Your cost for your health care over the next year is going to cost you $12,000 more, but here's $2,000. That sounds exactly like a Trump deal to me. That sounds exactly on brand for Trump. Right. Yeah. No, me too. Oh, no, I remember in 08, the Republicans were like, how much are you guys getting paid? And we're like, I think I did the math on how much I got paid per hour for the 08 cycle, and it came down to like 35 cents an hour or something. It was ridiculous. We worked like that primary, and then of course the election cycle. That was, I mean, the general election cycle. Those were 45, 50 hour in a row. Yeah. 35. Yeah. So nowadays, when we get paid, people always ask, how do you guys get paid? We take half up front, a quarter when we're halfway through, and then the last quarter about 2 or 3 weeks before the election. Because I can assure you, no matter how good your contract is, campaigns are fly-by-night organizations. Treat it as such. Because after election day, getting paid is insanely difficult. It'll cost you more in lawyer fees to go after them than they owe you money. So you get paid up front. You get paid ahead, or you won't ever get paid. I got a couple of friends right now that are stuck with being owed quite a bit of money and did their job. And now they're like trying to get paid. I'm like, you got to get paid up front or you won't get paid. Or you work for PACs. PACs pay you on time. That's the other reason I like them. Yes, everyone hit thumbs up. Thank you. Appreciate it. People are like, oh, PACs are evil. Not if you're professional and you work in the business, because candidates have a hard time paying. PACs are going to be around a while. They're not going anywhere. They have assets and resources. You know, you can't sell yard signs from a campaign after the campaign's over. Nobody wants to buy them. So if you want to get paid, you know, and eat, pay your rent, pay your bills, yeah, you got to get paid up front. Otherwise, not very likely it's going to happen. That's why you have a big firm and you're operating in multiple different campaigns all at the same time. But to be honest, then you get that quality of service from those staffers. Because if you're working in 12 campaigns, it gets divided by 12. It's not very, a lot of these campaigns need 20-hour work days just to keep them up and running. Oh, yes. So this is an interesting story from the 08 cycle. After the primary was over, keep in mind by the math, and the primaries were very different in the 08 cycle than they are now. By May, unless Hillary was going to win, 85% of the North Carolina primary, there was no chance of her winning the general. She went till June, kept burning money. But there was no mathematical way, knowing that what percent of the primary vote in North Carolina was African American, and that we had Obama. There was literally no mathematical way. And then when she retired her campaign, Obama picked up the check, a couple $100 million that he then paid off as now chair of the DNC. So money that went to Obama went to pay Hillary and her staff for going after Obama. Because we're one big happy family. There was a lot of people that had a hard time swallowing that. I remember that very specifically. And that was difficult. I mean, we've been in the trenches since March of 2007. And there was it was hard because you understand. This is also something that's kind of interesting. People don't know about. So if you worked in Obama in Texas in 2008, understand that the entire state apparatus of the party was Hillary. The entire state apparatus. County chairs, vast majority of the precinct chairs, and hi Nivra, vast majority of the precinct chairs, all Hillary. So Obama Dallas was formed by 7 or 8 people at a Cafe Brazil over on Greenville, Lower Greenville. Those of you who know Dallas, there was 6, 7. There's a photo somewhere of it happening. Not even sure if I have it anymore. And that's where it started. Mid-March, it's like right after my birthday. And I'm a Pisces. So mid-March, about 7 or 8 of us sat down and said, okay, what do we need to do? Well, first thing we need to do is start figuring out how can we get some resources together so we can make some door hangers and start knocking on doors and starting to people, building out databases, building out spreadsheets. And this was before any digital field programs like we have now. This was all hard copy, 8.5 by 11, 3-hole punch, and 1-inch view binders. So after that, you understand the county party of Dallas isn't the county party that we have today. It was different, very different. And there was almost no party in Collin County. Tarrant County was a few activists, really. Dallas County had some luck in 2006, replacing a lot of the judicials. That was like that 2006 blue wave because Bush was so terrible. It'd been a 6-year war on terrorism. We thought that was long. It went another 10. Just throwing that out there. And so we had a big blue wave in 2006 that knocked a bunch of judges into office, most of which filed like that day and said, okay, I'll run. It's lawyers that were tired of the system that they'd been working in forever, their entire professional career. And then they decided to run. And then now what do we do? So I worked with a lot of those guys in 2006. So 2008 and 2007, Obama Dallas started up. And the county party was Hillary. The Hillary headquarters was right next to the Dallas County Democratic Party headquarters. The building they were renting was owned by the same person that was renting out to the Dallas County Democratic Party. So they were one campaign, really. And then there was Obama Dallas, where we knocked on 385,000 doors. Volunteers did that over an 18-month period. I've never been in a campaign that lasted longer, worked harder, and the then executive director went to Austin 3 different times trying to shut us down, calling us an illegal organization. Nobody was being paid to be there. It was all volunteer driven. We were handed resources like ink and paper, which was great. Yeah, that Citizens United really blew it up, Nivra. I mean, there was already problems. Really happened when Reagan got rid of the Truth Act that basically meant that you couldn't just spew out garbage on television and call it news. When Reagan did that, gave all the cut the corporate taxes so then they could reinvest it into campaigns. Then Citizens United happened. Then McConnell stealing all those Supreme Court justices from Obama, and yes, he stole them, and getting those guys in there that gutted that Voting Rights Act. I mean, I can draw a line from 1981 straight to where we are right now, and it's line of sight, So, yeah, I started as my mom would tell you, I started in 76 in a stroller going up to a Carter rally here in Dallas, I think. So that's when I started. But yeah, it's literally Reagan on. It's been rough. And it's systematic cuts. Yeah. Oh, so many good people voted for Carter. Yeah. And I actually met Carter when I was in high school. I was in mock trial in 90. God help me. What year was it? It's Atlanta. I want to say 93. My team had won the championship locally on a wee little island called Guam. Also, Afade Guam. And we went to Atlanta where the headquarters was, where his presidential library is. And we went there, and he was there, and I shook his hand. Yeah, what a great guy. One of the presidents I've met. Really cool. And I've met quite a few, actually. Carter, unfortunately, the second Bush, but it was in passing. We were voting at the same voting location. Obama a bunch of times, Biden a bunch of times, and Clinton once. Those are all the presidents I've met. Yeah. And so, yeah, Schroeb, exactly. So, yeah, you can draw a line. They've really done a job on the voter rights. I mean, that act that they've got in Congress right now would be amazing. It would change my job profoundly, actually, and would give a lot more security to our vote than anything that the Trump or Bush administration or the Republicans in the Senate have tried to do. They've literally gone out of their way to just break all that down. I've done a bunch of shows on it. It's pretty rough. Oh, wow. Vivian Carter, that must have been pretty incredible. That my dad used to call him the best ex-president we ever had. They said Carter was the best ex-president that we ever had, and if you look at the record, I mean, he by far built more homes for more Americans than any president ever in the history of our country. I mean, with his own hands. I mean, it's kind of like, and he lived forever. So it's kind of like how Nolan Ryan has the strikeout record. He'll also tell you he's like he's had more home runs hitting on him, but it's because he was just there forever. No one's ever going to beat his record because he was just there forever. And no, Carter never gets enough credit for what he did. I mean, he was so far ahead of the curve, people just couldn't figure it out. He was just a man ahead of his time. Yeah, that's how I view Carter. Everyone's like, oh, he was a terrible president. I'm like, was he really? Because he had a lot to do with getting rid of bankrupting the USSR. That whole military buildup, everyone's like, oh, Reagan. I'm like, yeah, Reagan was part of that, sure, but it happened. It started under Carter. Carter wasn't. He definitely wasn't playing ball like Trump does with these Russians. That's for sure, 100%, guaranteed. And yes, yeah, they always take credit for what their Democrat did before them. That's literally their modus operandi. Bush absolutely took credit for this astounding economy that happened under Clinton. Also, Clinton was there during the internet revolution, and that's like saying I was president when the combustion engine was invented, or the steam engine was invented, or flight was in. I mean, you had a good spot in history to be president. The internet revolution was kind of a sweet spot to be in when all that happened, and then they used that against Gore, saying, "Oh, he said Gore really invented the internet. He didn't invent the internet. He was in Congress when the money that got allocated to invent the internet was there, and he was a vote on that, which is a lot more you can say for a lot of those yahoos that were going after Gore." I'll tell you, the Republicans and their messaging is so infuriatingly good. If you go back and watch that PAC video I did a few days ago, actually comment on, it's almost like they just do a word jumble of patriotic words, and then whatever, they have the little magnet strips and they just throw them against the refrigerator, and that's the name of their PAC. America, beautiful PAC, or they have all these. We have like PACs that actually say what they're going to do. They're not as exciting. That's something we need to get better at, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I knew why Republicans kept being believed by the general population. Oh, it's full blown marketing. Actually, I did do a show on exactly that. So going back, right? The the progressives and the Democrats and anyone along those lines gave up on rural America back in the 70s. Like, we got abortion legalized, and we're like, okay, we're done. So what happened was, and I've mentioned this a few times, what the Republicans did in Texas specifically. That's how, everyone's like, oh, Texas is red. It wasn't always red. In fact, it was very blue at one point. But what happened was, Karl Rove, it's actually one of my favorite political photos of all time, is Karl Rove and two other gentlemen standing in front of reel-to-reel hard drives, the ones with this big spinnings in the 70s. And they're standing in front of that. And behind them is the entire voter reg for Texas and the entire membership list of every evangelical church in Texas. And their goal with that database was to register them all to vote, because they noticed they weren't. And so they had to come up with language that would work with those Christians in those churches out in rural Bodunk nowhere. They said, well, what do? They listen to the radio, right? Parts of Texas were still being electrified at that point. Radio, the only radio out there that was strong enough was AM. So they took over AM radio and talk radio and started talking about how the Democrats have passed Roe and that they're killing children. And that's very unchristian to kill children. And then they did that for 40 years. Gave birth to things like Rush Limbaugh, who was the pioneer of that entire genre, and all of his little acolytes. Fox News is just an acolyte of Rush Limbaugh. They worship at the Rush Limbaugh altar. And because there was no counter narrative for 50 years, no counter narrative at all by anyone from the left. No one talking about what Jesus said on the Mount. I am my brother's keeper, take care of those who are strangers, all that stuff that he said, the right over. Don't bring any of that up. Just go that, Democrats are all people of color, gays, and they want to kill babies. And that's all they said. And there was no one to say anything different for 40 or 50 years. And between that and the Civil Rights Act and the same messaging bubble that was using the right-wing Christian nonsense machine, and then there was the racism and all that jazz, which was alive and well, and was bang the six. It's still alive and well, obviously. All of that had a narrative that could just go. And it just went for 50 years. So the argument now is we're going into these spaces saying, your great-grandfather was wrong. Your grandfather was wrong. Your father was wrong. You're wrong for believing the things that you believe. That is a very, 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 very hard argument to make. But it's one that has to be made. So now what we got to do is we got to figure out how to make that argument, bridge that gap. And man, yeah, I don't know. I've been doing this for 30 years and I'm still trying to figure that out. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Baptist. I've been to the Baptist Church Conference here, Southern Baptist Church Conference. I had a Baptist minister who was running for city council back in the aughts. I used to do a lot of municipal races back then, and predicted his turnout. I was off by 3 votes for his turnout. Unfortunately, Our opponent got about 300 more votes than we did. um, but yeah, I've been to that conference. It was scary as hell. As a Unitarian Universalist, not what I grew up with. Yeah, well, does anyone remember Radio Free America? Remember that? Um, uh, that's where on MSNBC right now. Oh, what was anyway? So we got Al Franken had a show on that radio station. I listened to it driving around, running campaigns. We just had it on, and right after him, she's on MSNBC. Oh my god, I'm having such the brain fart. This is why these live shows are so much fun. You guys see what kind of machinations and handsprings I do to get anything out of this noodle these days. Maddow, thank you. God, Maddow came on right after him. That's where she came from. I don't know if anyone knows that, but Rachel Maddow was right after Al Franken on the lineup on that program. There's a documentary that Al Franken's in, a bunch, of course, because he was the guy who kind of said, hey, we got to do this. That was an experiment, and we could not get any big liberal money into that. I think that was the biggest mistake, that they couldn't figure out how to make that work. And Lord knows they tried. And then when they failed, the Republicans just looked, pointed, and laughed. And it was brutal. And I mean, they just couldn't get advertisers. No one's listening, blah, blah, blah. There's lots of talk radio out there. What are you doing? No liberals listen to talk radio because we don't want to listen to Rush Limbaugh. That's why we don't listen to talk radio. I listen to talk radio all the time. It's just digressed into my NPR app where I listen to, I'll tell you the stuff that I listen to on NPR. Some of you guys might be interested. Okay. My podcasts that I listen to are, as it slowly does it. There we go. I listen, of course, All Things Considered. I listen to the Up First from State of the World. I usually let NPR politics build up for a week, and then I just listen to the whole thing all the way through. Find that to be a really interesting. No. So it's not closing. That's what all the Republicans wish. NPR is not closing. They dissolved the organization that kind of did a lot. So it's really hurting the small, independent. Like, honestly, it's a huge hit because it's, yes, the corporate body. Thank you. There's still lots of there's still a lot of programming you're going. In fact, there's a lot of money that's still raised for public radio. It's just now being raised. And then when I'm like, so they'll have a bunch of contributors that contribute to programming in Chicago, for example. And then Chicago's program will be syndicated throughout the rest of the country. Dallas produces a ton of shows that are then syndicated all over the country. Yes. So I listen to NPR. I still listen to this day. I was raised on NPR. And that's sad. But what's interesting is that because I listen to my NPR not on the radio anymore, I listen on the internet. So now, for really the first time probably ever, you've got media that's out in rural America. That's why I think there's so much stuff going on out there. There's a lot of math that says that the Republican Party's in trouble out there in rural America. That's why Georgia is blue now. It's because they were like, oh, there are these counties that aren't going as heavy as they need to. Oh yeah, WPR. There you go, Wisconsin. So I grew up on Lake Wobegon. Stories from Lake Wobegon. You guys remember that? Love that. I literally listen to that every week. And it's like, and it's that's where that came from up there. It was great. Um, uh, uh, yeah, NPR is where I go. I get a lot of ideas from my shows from NPR. Believe it or not, they'll say something. I'm like, well, that's really interesting. I wonder how that relates to this and that and this and that. So, policy analyst, I'm always connecting dots. It's literally what policy analysts do, and I'll get ideas from them. So when you see me suddenly do a show that's like, oh, he's not really talked about that, odds are I got an idea from NPR. Odds are, to be honest, or I've got a friend of mine, like, so that one I did on the data farms and the impact that they're having on communities. uh, those data farms, that came from a friend of mine who works in tech. He's like, bro, you got to check this shit out. Excuse my French. You got to check this out because your father did base funding. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he did. Yeah, my dad was involved in the local NPR. And my mom was also part of public broadcasting. She was part of the team that, thought that like Faulty Towers and all that stuff would be hilarious and that should come to America. Dallas's public television station here locally was literally where the first programming came first. It was like New York, Dallas. Oh, there's maybe someplace on the West Coast, maybe LA. I don't know, but maybe San Francisco. Anyway, but those were the hubs back in the way back days. Oh yeah, I'm Faulty Towers all day. Oh, Boston. Yeah. I'm Faulty Towers. I grew up on Doctor Who, huge Doctor Who fan. I'm Star Trek all day. I'm Star Wars all day. But yeah, that's where my background comes from. Anyway, but getting back to communicating with the rural America, I think this is maybe the way we do it. But it gets back to getting buy-in. They got to download the app, which means we got to do that. We got to bridge that gap, but the digital divide isn't the biggest divide. And you don't need a radio station license, or the staff or the amplification to reach these people anymore. Oh, I love Masterpiece Theater. There's a way. There's a way here. Like Air America in this format, I think could work. And in fact, it kind of does already. Like, look how many progressive channels like mine there are on YouTube. And YouTube's an app, and you can, create a playlist and do all this stuff. I feel like that's the next step. That's why I do a lot of programming with rural America. That's why when I was up in Wisconsin, I talked a lot about that. I like some of the congressional districts in Wisconsin. I like, my favorites are 1, 3, and 8. Those are my favorites to flip. And 3 over on the western side, believe it or not, is easier to flip than 1, which is just south of Milwaukee. But there's different geographies, and they cost different. Happy to do a show on that one day, but not today. But then there's 8, which I don't know why, but I do my math on it, and I'm all like, I like it, but I have no reason to like it except for there's a couple of things here tells me I should like it. It's the heavier lift, though. It's like a 6-point move. The others are just like 1, maybe a half a point move. That one's a 6-point move. But like in this cycle, so like in all of our elections, and I took out all the outliers. Lord knows I'd take Miami out. Jesus, you gotta go look at those numbers. This is insane. But the swing for the elections in 2025 was 13.5 points was the average. What happens if the Dems lose in the midterms? Well, Julie, yeah, 6 points might be easier. There's a couple things that would happen, actually. The money would take a hard look at the budget. of these races and what they're spending their money on and what the ROI is. In fact, that's what's been happening. So if you go to my channel, you can find I think it's in my Wisconsin folder. It's called the Green Bay Experiment. And it's where we were, my team, when I say we, I mean, so I work with I'm CLSB Politics here, but when I'm out and out, I'm with the Broadway group, which is a great group, which is a team. If you add us all together, there's only 4 or 5 of us really, but we have over 100 years of experience. You know, we're all Gen X. Maybe Rod's not, but Rod should be. Well, maybe we just graduate him up. But we're mostly almost all Gen X, and we come from the mud. We come from field, and it's called the Broadway Group, and that's who I work with when I'm out there. And I work with a wonderful gentleman I'd love to give a shout out named Ricky Broadway, great guy, and we were given Green Bay by a group that said, hey, we got a Supreme Court race coming up. It's an important seat. And if we lose this seat in the Supreme Court, the conservatives will take over. They're going to gut our libraries. They're going to do all these terrible things to our state. God help us. I was like, all right. We'd proven that we knew what we were talking about in 2024. Keep in mind, Wisconsin only lost to Trump by like half a point. We took every seat below it. We won seats in 2024. Just couldn't get that one. So there's that 3% block of MAGA that walk in, vote Trump, and walk out. That's also the Republicans' worst nightmare in the midterms. Just letting you know. It's a thing. So we walked into Green Bay and we said, listen, most of us are from Texas. We're operated in very red states. You guys have voting. You can register to vote on election day, which is just, to us, blows our mind. The possibilities were just exponential and just kept on growing. And we got very excited. And they're all just sitting there, oh, I don't know. It's just how we do it around here. And we're like, guys, we can do some really cool stuff. And they said, okay, well, we're not going to give you Milwaukee, and we're not going to give you Racine, but we'll give you Green Bay. And we're like, sweet. I love Green Bay. I do actually very much love Green Bay. I was there in 2024 for a little bit, helping them get the program up and running. And then they stuck me in a hole in Milwaukee where I just looked at spreadsheets forever. So I've already been in Green Bay. I loved it. Food's there. The beer's great. Cheese is everywhere. You've got great football culture, although I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, which means I'm a Democrat in Texas in football terms. The Cowboys have been more successful in Texas than any Democrat recently. That's how bad it is. Anyway, so we went to Green Bay and we were like, can we do the targeting? Can we build this program the way we want to build it? And they're like, you know what? Green Bay is the hardest place to run anything. No one has ever gotten a good program up there, ever. Get it done. We trust you guys. We're going to be down here in the big places that matter. Do what you got to do. Hope it works out. And they trust us. And I also daily reports and lots of math. And I just threw just graph after graph after graph at them every day. They knew I was auditing the entire field program for the state because I was state data director for the program. So it wasn't like they just left us and then they never heard back from us. They were getting daily reports every day. So just to give you what my day looked like, you wake up at 6 a.m. I usually stopped work around 1 a.m., got some sleep, repeat. Sunday was the day we didn't canvass, day of rest, whatever. I would go to church, then I would find a place, start doing data work again. That was kind of my thing. Green Bay's got a lovely Unitarian Universalist church. So is Milwaukee, actually. Absolutely adored it. Anyway, so we went up there and we did our targeting. A lot of times when they target doors. They look at like that top 30-40% of likely voters. We were like, what if we took it all the way down to 0? Get all the hard R's out, get all the MAG out, get all the the hardcore Republicans. I don't want to talk to any of them. We're not here to change minds. What we're here to do is ask people to vote. So we went in and did exactly that. And we overperformed by 16 points in Green Bay compared to every other cycle. Milwaukee was like 3.5. Racine was 2.5. 16 points. In fact, in my after action report, I dropped that down to 12 because 16 is just rude. But it was 16. So normally that Supreme Court race that nobody ever turns out to, they had governor level turnout in Green Bay. Nobody ever turns out for that race. They almost governor election day level turnout on that day. And then they normally call that race at like 11:30, 12. We're talking to the political director for our program, for the program down in Milwaukee. He's like, guys, go to the watch party that the Democratic Party's throwing. They usually have it in a nice theater, but get a couple, you'll have a few drinks. You'll be able to relax. You guys have worked your butt off. We were out all day, GOTVing, getting everybody out to vote. And we're like, oh, good. So we got there, sat down, ordered our drink. It was like 7:45, said hi to the county chair, whose son actually worked in our field program. And we didn't even know it until much later on. And we sat down and I looked at Ricky. I was like, good job, Ricky. This is a great program. I'm proud of the work we did. And then we're like, why is everyone cheering? What do you mean they called it? It's 8:00. They're calling it 4 hours early. How good of a job did we do? And it wasn't until like 48 hours later that we started getting more of the data and that we even knew how crazy of a win that was. Off the rail. Keep in mind, we had Elon Musk handing out $1 million checks in that cycle. It was nuts. So yeah, the type of program that we like to run is what we ran in Green Bay. That's the type of program we would like to run all over the place if given the opportunity. And we may be given that opportunity again. There is talk that we will be back in Green Bay. Very much look forward to that. So many great people in Green Bay. Shout out to my friend Paul. Shout out to my friend Ra. Shout out to my friend Creasy. Emma, who's got a great podcast that I'll be on the 22nd, I believe. I'll post the link and everything so you guys can see when that happens. And that's a bunch of college kids up there that have their own podcast. It's called Left. Gosh, I'll have to find it. Anyway, it's great, and they do a great job. Then they operate at a local level, although they did have Eli Worthy, who is the youngest candidate in Texas running. He's running JP4 up in Collin County. I've had him on my show. I'm technically his general consultant, although a good friend of my dad's, and I use my dad past tense because he passed away. Yeah, they are the Green Bay version of Midas Touch. Yeah. They're Left. That's it. Left for Dead. Look them up out of Green Bay. They're awesome. They have great shows. Another group that I watch a lot, actually, who's got a great, I'm going to give them a shout out. They don't know who I am, but they're African-American gentlemen out of Chicago. They're called Jam, I believe, with 2 A's. I'm subscribed to them. They are awesome. And just want to make sure I get their stuff correct. Hold on. Yeah, Jam is what they are, and they talk about a lot of stuff that's going on in Chicago. They talk. What I like about them is they're all millennials, or younger, and the stuff that they talk about, yes, there it is, JAAM. They drop the N word quite a bit, which is fine. My entire team is African American, and I hear it all the time. I don't use it for all the right reasons. But, 400 years of slavery, they can use that word all they want. I don't care. So they're great. And I thoroughly enjoy their take on things. Some of the stuff, I'll be honest, goes over my head. I'm not really into the fashion stuff or, all the swag and stuff, whatever. But once you get through all that, the stuff they talk about is insanely important. And it's the Left 4 Dead out of Green Bay, and then out of Chicago. Yeah. They're great. Outfo, G-Bay, you know what I mean. They're great. And I listen to those guys. I listen to both Left 4 Dead, of course, because they're my friends. But Jam I found, yeah, they're right on it. What they're talking about is, I think that's what there needs to be more of. And that's, my channel, I mean, they get millions of, they're monetized. They do, they get all this stuff. My channel's not like that, obviously. But they really are good. They just have a lot of good information, but just the way they talk and the way they approach the information is really, really great. I really enjoy them. But anyway, guys, this went about an hour longer than I anticipated. So I'm going to end this stream, but this went so well. I think I will do this again. I'll try and, I don't know, I'll make it a regular thing, but I wouldn't mind it. It actually worked pretty good, and it wasn't that complicated. Kind of did my own, did everything. So, but just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you for all the likes. There's a nice dozen of us here, and I'm going to, of course, this will get reposted. Oh, here. I want to say, oh, come here. Come here, you. This is Micho. Micho says bye. All right. Okay. He's going to chew on my hand and then run away. Good job. Thank you, Micho. Oh, he's going after his treats. That makes more sense. So anyway, hope everyone, hope this was useful and everyone enjoyed it. I'm more than happy to take questions and do this kind of live format again. I didn't mind it at all. If you guys don't mind me retelling like the same 9 stories over and over again, I'd be down for that. All right, guys. All right. Well, this was fun. All right. I'll talk to you guys later.